I'm going to talk about the Snooze program. And if you joined us a few months ago for office hours, you heard Queena, who went in detail about some of the rationale why we add snooze programs. And in case you are unfamiliar with a snooze program is really about giving customers an option beyond just opting out of your communication. Because let's be honest, everyone receives a lot of email. We send a lot of email, so we understand that that's happening. And sometimes people need to take a break, or maybe they are have a change of assignment, or they have a new priority, and so they want to focus on those areas. So maybe your particular set of emails are not necessarily top of mind. So giving them the ability to delay that communication for a period of time is a great way of giving them control and giving them the ability to make sure that they don't opt out and you retain them as a customer and a contact in your database, but they get to take a pause. So the example I'm going to talk about today, a few requirements that we put into this that we wanted to make sure happen. We wanted this to happen immediately. You know, as Eloqua administrators, we're always familiar with things taking effect immediately. So this is not new, but we want to make sure that that happens to them. We are going to unsubscribe people in the program. So this is the tactic that we're going to use in Eloqua. The other reason why we use global unsubscribe is it still preserves their group settings. So if they have opted in and out of certain topics, that won't be affected. And then once we bring them back off of Snooze, that is going to be preserved moving forward. The way we're describing it today, you also can add Snooze to your existing campaigns. And there's a little caveat here that I'll cover as we get a little bit closer in here. That you're going to need to pay a special attention to make sure that you don't have problems with unsnoozing your campaigns. There are some additional options that you might consider implementing, and I've chosen not to do these today, mostly because their implementation is a little bit more specific to how your pages might be and how you were implementing it. But these are certainly options you could consider. You could do an unsnooze. So, you know, somebody snoozed and then a week later they decide, now I want to go right back in and receive communication. So you can easily unsnooze them. You might consider adjusting frequency. I know that's an option for some people because sometimes you get bombarded and you want to slow it down a little bit. And then you may also have a requirement for improved reporting. And so you'll need to collect some additional data to do that. So let me start with a very simple form designer landing page here. Of course, your email preference center is likely to have much better design. It's going to have friendly language. You want to make sure that when people arrive at your preference center, they feel welcome, they feel in control, and it's not an afterthought. The more you embrace them and share with them that you respect their preferences, the better their experience is going to be, and the more likely you are to retain them. So the way this will work is if somebody was to select the snooze option, we're going to update the UI and we're going to give them some options. So we want to constrain the different choices they can make. That simplifies how we are going to do our implementation. And then once they submit, we'll jump over to the form processing steps that we'll need to do in order to implement this. So the first thing we're going to do is, of course, we're going to save the data that we received in the form. So that's what this will look like. So you can see here the snooze option value that was selected, I'm going to store in the snooze field and then store with the email address. The next thing that's going to happen is I'm going to, if they have selected the snooze option, I've got a conditional statement here that's going to process that if that contains a value, and I'll show you what that looks like. So if the snooze option is not blank, then we're going to process that. And that's how we're going to make sure that that gets unsubscribed. So this is the step where we're going to globally unsubscribe them, so that happens first. And then if they've chosen the other options, we'll process those just to make sure your form is complete. And then again, if the snooze program value is not blank, then we're going to add them to the snooze program. which I will show you next. And again, if you have any questions, be sure to pop them into the Q&A. All right, so here's our program. It's relatively straightforward. We try not to make this too complicated. This is where the contacts will flow in from the processing steps, and then we're just going to evaluate using a decision step and move them down the path that corresponds to that. So it's going to go in, it will wait for the period of time that they have specified. And once that wait step is over, then it will resubscribe them. And as I described earlier, it's going to preserve all of their group selections, so they will continue to receive or not receive the communication based on their previous preferences. And then the last step we're going to do, of course, is we're going to clear the snooze field. That way that it will show that they are no longer in a snooze state. And I described earlier how we can add these to campaigns and make them fully compatible with this snooze. And so here I have my existing campaign, and my segment members are going to flow in and they just go directly to this step. Now, if I implemented snooze and I did not have the change I'm going to show you in just a second, and someone's to flow into this email and they were globally unsubscribed, that contact would be stuck here. And so what we want to do is avoid that. So to do that and make it compatible, we're just going to do a decision step prior to sending the email. We're going to check to see if the snooze field has a value, that if it's blank, that's true, that we're going to go down this path and we're just going to continue on. If the field is not blank and there's a value in there, we are going to just delay it by day. So we'll wait and it'll come back and it'll do this however many days it needs in order to process that. And if you do this, then do it this way and you implement it, then when they, if they snooze and they come back, it's just going to resume exactly where they left off. And that is the essence of this, the program. So just as a summary of the reasons why you would want to implement a snooze program, of course, it gives your users more control over their communication. And when they feel like they have control, they're less likely to opt out, because you want to keep them as a customer, even if right now your products and services are not top of mind. It helps reduce unsubscribes. Of course, unsubscribes and they're gone, and then you have to reacquire them. That's a lot more expensive. We tried to make this particular implementation as simple as possible so that it was easy for you to do. And we also made sure that we implemented it in such a way that you could auto-resume campaigns after snooze. So let me check to see if we have any questions. All right, it looks like we have one. Oh, this is a good one. Says here, why don't we see a snooze option more widely used on different websites? That's a great question. I actually don't find snooze as often as I would think would be implemented. And I think it's mostly because perhaps I had the same thing before I considered deeply how to do this program. I overthought the process. And so I didn't realize that it was going to be as simple. And so some of the other team members here, when they demonstrated this option, it was a very easy way of doing it and simple and straightforward. So it was like, oh yeah, we can do this quite easily. So I think that if Eloqua users understood how simple it was to implement this, then they would be a lot more likely to implement it. Okay, so we have another question from Carl. Thank you. It says, snooze is a good idea to present on the unsubscribe page to hopefully save them. Many ways to skin a cat too. This could be done by using shared lists as well. You are correct. It could be done by shared lists. In fact, that's how we did it for one of our other clients. The advantage of shared lists is it does give you some additional kinds of reporting that you could do as well. So depending on what your existing practices are, that was certainly an option to do that. We chose to use this one for this example just to make it as simple as possible. So thank you very